So, Mel, welcome.
Thank you for having me,
Very, very
buddy.
nice to have you. It's been a long time
I
since the
know.
photo shoots and the and Trinidad lookbook and all those
Sheesh.
things.
Yes, it's been a minute.
I still see.
I feel like
How,
my eyes water, and I don't know
how
why.
do you
But you're
you
good.
do? I think there's a napkin here if you
Nah,
want
yeah,
one.
you're good.
How do you pronounce your name again? AC.
It's yeah,
AC.
AC. Yeah,
I still think back that was still one of my favorite photo shoots.
one of mine too.
Yeah,
The
I had a
results of that shoot, I was like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It was that was a fun one. But yeah, what have you been up to? What's the
Um,
latest?
I have been. I hate saying this word, but I guess it's part of my lore now. I've been surviving, you
Right.
know. And I've been trying to find a way to do that without making my entire personality about survival. So,
You want to pull this up a little bit? I would
oh
love to.
yeah,
Yeah, let's make
sure.
sure we get this crystal
One,
clear.
two. Yeah, so I'm a breast cancer survivor, which has been so interesting. And trying now that like treatment is over and all that, I'm trying to get back to the other part of my story, which is, creating platforms for Caribbean creators through Lookbook and through any brand extensions and just different things that I've been building. And taking my time and trying to give myself grace, but I'm also annoyed because I have to move a little slower than
A
I'd like
certain
to.
restlessness.
Yeah.
I,
Because I just want to go, go, go. And my body is saying, yeah, take your time,
yeah,
you know?
I could only imagine.
Yeah.
I guess to that point or on that point, I want to kind of then ask. I have a friend who just recently went through a similar, another friend who just went through a similar story with a breast cancer diagnosis and treatment and now in remission and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I remember when she first told me, it's my old roommate's wife, and I was, I guess, you hear those stories and like what we were talking about before the cameras were rolling. It's like a lot of people hear this one, got diagnosed with cancer, or this one is battling cancer, but oftentimes, unless it's you or somebody close to you, you don't really feel what I mean. It would be impossible to, but you don't really get to feel or understand exactly the
Yeah.
toll that it can take.
Yeah.
But to kind of go back to the beginning of that journey, she it was the typical thing where I think she was showering and she felt, a lump.
Yeah.
I mean, is that kind of similar for you? Maybe you could
Yeah,
kind of
that
share
was
that part
exactly my experience.
from an educational standpoint, of course.
Yeah. Now, some backstory. My mother had breast cancer. So we have a family history on my mother's side. And because we have a family history, we always knew, my sister and me, we always knew to check, right? We were kind of aware. We were a little vigilant more than most, I think. Um, and for me, I was in the shower, soaping up, and felt a lump. And I'm like, this feels a little different than normal breast tissue, And then for women, when you have your cycle, the density of your breasts might change and you'll feel different things because of your cycle. So I wanted to wait until after my period to see if there was a difference. And there wasn't a difference. So I'm like, okay. And I called my sister and I said, hey, could you come feel this? She's like, dude, I don't want to feel you up. I'm like, I know, it's fine. Just come and feel this lump. It feels weird. So she came, she was like, yeah, that feels angry. I went to Cancer Society. I made an appointment for an ultrasound because I was 36 at the time, which is fairly young for a
Yes.
diagnosis.
Yes.
And so I couldn't do a mammogram. So I did the ultrasound, and they were like, yeah, we need to do a biopsy for this because we're seeing something, but we're not sure, da da da. And I did the biopsy, came back with a diagnosis of invasive ductal carcinoma. I'm like, okay, right, Joe, cool. What's the next step? And I think the doctor was kind of weirded out because he's like, did you hear what I just said, Miss Gabriel? Are you? I'm like, yeah, I want to know, like, what are we doing? What's the next step? Because maybe it's morbid or whatever, but I prepared myself. From the minute I felt the lump, I said, all right, this could probably be cancer. It feels very different from anything I felt before. It's probably that. So let's prepare ourselves to fight it. Because I know I wasn't going to just be like, oh God, I cancer, I can't take it, and give up. I don't like to wallow too much. So I'm like, all right, let's deal.
And you're a doer and a planner.
Yeah.
From what I know of you from when we've worked together. So
Yeah.
I could definitely see how you would kind of prepare yourself for that. It's I guess it's a tough conversation to even have, but I know that you are open to discussing it. I still want to be sensitive, but
It's not that tough, to be honest. I know I don't want to be naive to the fact that it might be tough for several other people. I find it less so for me, and I'm still trying to figure out why. I don't know why it's so okay for me to share and talk and
well,
be
good.
so open, but I'm leaning in. So
I mean,
yeah.
if you can encourage somebody to check or double check
Yeah,
and
yeah,
make
yeah.
sure, I mean, I guess that's a massive social benefit
Yeah,
by itself.
for sure.
But I you know what, that I'm kind of curious. That first, I mean, a doctor tells you about a diagnosis of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
You lie down in your bed the first night that you know that. I mean, was it hard to sleep? Was there a moment where you sat there and you just think to yourself, I'm about to kind of battle one of the potentially hardest battles probably a person can battle?
Even before that point, there was a lot of management of other people's feelings. So I got the diagnosis and I called my father and I said, do you want to wait until I get home or do you want me to tell you no? And he's like, I want you to tell me no. And I told him over the phone and he starts to cry on the phone and I'm like, all right, I'm going to talk to you when I get home. And then I'm driving from Port of Spain to Shogunas by myself in the car and thinking about everything. I'm like, all right, cool. Cancer diagnosis, what are we doing? All right, you had to do this and you need this and and it's the day before my birthday I got the diagnosis. I'm like, all right, cool, you're fine. You're fine. I say this to myself like regular, like, you're fine, you're okay, calm down, self-soothing kind of vibe. And I started to call my aunts on my mother's side. Because something, it's strange. Something inside me, I already knew, all right, you have this platform, most likely you're going to share about this thing, right? But I knew I also could not share until I told my family. So I started to call, and at the time I had an aunt who was battling peritoneal cancer. And she's no longer with us, rest her soul. But I called her first, after my dad. And she started to cry. She was very supportive and all that, but everybody's crying and everybody's like, you'll be okay, you'll be. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I didn't cry until I spoke to her. Because she is the aunt who, she looks the most like my mother. She's the eldest. She's, just such a rock and all that. And I was like, what the fuck? So I lost it in the car. Luckily, I was close to home, so I'm like, all right, cool. And then I got home, and my father wanted to talk immediately. And I'm like, okay. So I'm in there, and I'm trying to because he had a stroke, so now he's a little bit more emotional than he used to be, and I have to kind of hold space for him. And at one point, I said, all right, I'm going to take a nap, because I'm an emotional napper. I need to take a nap. I will talk to you later, because he just wants to, hold me close and talk about everything, but he's feeling his feelings out loud, and I need him to tuck it back in, And once I managed that, got that out of the way, I took a minute, and I was like, all right, cool. But I'm constantly thinking about things. I'm so preemptive with so many things in my life and how I approach things. It's like risk management for me. So I already knew, all right, you have to do surgery, you have to do chemo, you have to do whatever. What's that going to look like? And that was it. But then I napped. And I woke up, and the problem was still there, but I was a little clearer, I guess. But yeah, I don't think I felt all of my feelings until chemo ended. That was interesting and dark.
What,
I
yeah.
So chemo, I had.
I was going to ask you what was your I guess what was the plan for treatment?
Right. Okay. So the plan was a mastectomy, right? Which typically a mastectomy you just cut off the infected breast. So it was I had right side invasive ductal
Just on one side.
just on one side, and then I went to St. James Breast Clinic, and they palpated my chest and they felt something on the left. Now I was diagnosed in December. I went to St. James because I also just did not want to deal in the moment. I wanted to enjoy Christmas and New Year. I love Christmas, so I'm like, you know what? Whatever. I'm just gonna do Christmas and I'll deal with it after. I went to St. James like in February or at the end of January, beginning of February, somewhere there, and did the exam. And they were like, all right, well, we're feeling something on the left. You know, it feels like two smaller lumps or whatever. I'm like, all right, let's do two. And they were like, you sure you want to do a double mastectomy? I'm like, yeah, let's, because I know me, I don't want to deal with this again if I could avoid it.
Right.
I'm also like a little bit of OCD, so I know I can't do one side and have, like, it needs to be even. I'm an idiot. But so that was the decision then. And following surgery, the plan was 8 rounds of chemo. And following chemo, the plan would have been radiation. All of which I expected. I'm like, all right, cool, let's go, you know?
One after the other.
One
Let's
after
do what we
the
gotta
other.
do.
Yeah. No, I did everything through the public healthcare system, which a lot of people have an issue with for themselves. But I'm like, oh, this is great. You know, they were very compassionate. Like St. James and Sangre Grande, they have one of the best cancer centers in the country.
Fantastic.
You know, and people come from all over the country to access these services, and they're so good. It's a little bit of a wait on the day, but they're great. You know, you get through and you're in and out, and it wrecks you internally and physically, but I saw it as this very necessary thing because I wanted to live. I knew I didn't want to give up and just, you know, be there and waste away. So that was a treatment plan. 8 rounds of chemo. I thought, because I had 2 drugs, right? So the first 4 rounds you do one drug, and the next 4 you do a different one. So for the first 4, I told myself, all right, I'm going to prepare myself. After the first one, I paid attention to the side effects. I paid attention to how I felt during the week after. I'm like, all right, cool. Certain scents would kind of throw me off, or feel a little nauseated. All right, cool. So by the time the second, third, and fourth one came around, I was prepared. I could handle it. I knew how my body would respond. Right. I knew, like, all right, I'm going to rest very intentionally for the first 3 to 4 days, and then I could maybe pick up a laptop and try to do some work or try to, you know. But that was the first 4. The second 4, I don't know why I thought the side effects would be the same, but the second 4, they were like, oh, you thought.
Oh, Lord.
And it was bone pain out of nowhere. I couldn't predict when it would happen. I thought I could. I'm like, okay, the first one was a little rough, so I know now how the second one. The second one was like chilling, and then the bone pain would come out of nowhere. And when I tell you bone pain, I've never felt pain like that before in my life. It's like this searing kind of pain in my spine, as if somebody with needles for hands holding on to the base of my spine and just doing this. So the needles going into my spine, but they're also like playing with it. And I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? Because this is very, very different. And there were many nights where I'm like laying there sobbing because, I'm going through treatment during the pandemic. I can't have company. I can't have friends over. I can't, like, none of that. So it was a lot of FaceTime, and I'm calling different people, and I end up crying on the phone, and they helpless. They don't know what to do, and I just had to kind of grind through it. But that was like a very shitty experience. The last four, the first four, I know I could handle it. So now coming out of chemo, I had sessions like every 3 weeks. Once the sessions ended, I lost the routine of every 3 weeks. I lost that prep and, get ready for clinic and show up at this time and all that. I just had a lot of free time with my thoughts and feelings. And that was the deepest depression I've ever been in my life for like 3 months. And I had moments where I'm like, you talk a really good game online, my girl, but look at you now. And I had to like have these conversations over and over with, I have a friend who's a therapist, and your friends shouldn't be a therapist, but she was very good at just kind of keeping me even keeled, or as even keeled as possible, because I was about to lose my shit like entirely. And that's the stuff I don't post about. I think I did one post about that, and the way my community showed up for me once I expressed my discomfort or whatever. I had a friend who said, please remember that people cannot read your mind. Please remember that you are showing up online as this very strong, brave individual, so people think you're okay. If you're not okay, you need to say you're not okay.
That's a
say
good
what you
point.
need.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wasn't doing that. So when he said that, I was like, okay, good point. I should really try to, speak up a little more. And then I started reaching out to people and saying, hey, could you invite me to things? Because I need to leave the house. I'm going crazy. I'm going to lose my mind. Please invite me, even if it's just to run errands with you or something, like just help me get out of the house. So different friends would be like, hey, I'm doing this. Hey, I'm doing this. Hey, come to this concert and whatever. And so that helped. But it was dark days for a minute.
So it was essentially a double mastectomy
Yeah.
into chemo. Or was it at the same time-ish?
It was not the same time. It was surgery first, and I had not 3 weeks. Why would I say 3 weeks? I guess 12-week recovery period.
And then you went into
and
chemo.
then they scheduled chemo.
So was it that they weren't confident that, because I don't know know about this obviously, was it that they didn't think the surgery would
be enough?
Obviously they didn't think that, but
okay, so they did a double mastectomy, and they removed lymph nodes from my axilla. So the axilla will be under the arm,
yes,
right?
yes.
And once they do their pathology report, they would be able to say if you need chemo or not. So based on my pathology, they got clear margins around the tumors, so that was fine. But the lymph nodes, if they removed 12, and 2 of them were malignant. So they had to do chemo
Right.
to, I guess,
To
stave
hammer out the
off.
rest of the stuff.
Yeah, in case it spread anywhere, they need to be able to kill all the cells and make sure nothing else happens. But then they said, all right, and you need radiation. So I was like, God, I did the surgery, I did chemo, why do I need radiation?
Yeah.
And one of my aunts explained it in the best way. She's like, radiation is like passing a mop after you sweep.
Okay.
So chemo was the sweeping, and you just want to pass a mop to make sure you pick up everything else. So I'm like, all right, cool.
That's a
That
decent
makes sense.
analogy.
Yeah.
Because the mop's still cleaning, but I guess it's also
Picking up any little
Yeah.
errant dust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's and then you did the radiation.
16 rounds of radiation, 16 sessions, and that was every day for 3 weeks and a day, not on the weekend.
Targeting the lymph nodes.
Targeting the entire right side of
Got it.
my chest, underarm. So I had to be like this on the bed. So it would target under here and in the back here. And what's interesting is I have this oncologist friend in London, and when I told her, like, yeah, I'm going to do radiation, it's going to be 16 rounds. And she's like, 16 rounds is a lot. 16 rounds is a lot if they got clear margins from surgery and you did 8 rounds of chemo. 16 is too much. And so I got concerned. I'm like, what the hell? Like, she said the protocols for cancer treatment in the Caribbean are still kind of archaic compared to what they do in the NHS.
Right.
So at this point, I'm kind of like, do I fight this or do I just kind of go through? Because I know I don't want to have to do this again. So if I could just, I'll just go through, I'll eat it. I'll go through the 16 and get it done, which I did. But it really got me thinking about what the protocols are here and how are we still kind of doing things in this very old way, and can it be better? What does that look like? What does better look like?
Right. Is it efficiency? Is it high?
Yeah.
Less doses, higher this and that.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows?
I mean, I'm sure it's an overabundance of caution.
Right.
But at the same time, you have to think about quality of life. So for me, after 16 rounds of radiation, and this happens for anybody doing radiation, the skin was inflamed. It started to shed essentially, and then it started to sclerose, which is contract. So this side is way tighter than this side. And I have like exercises I need to do constantly to make sure my skin remains as pliable and supple
Elastic
as possible
and whatnot.
elastic. Yeah. So it's a lot to consider and a lot to remember, because there's the cancer experience and the recovery experience, but then there's life happening outside of that you kind of have to show up for. And, if you want to work and have an income and do things and show up for your friends and your family, like there's so much to do. And so it's a very layered experience, I tell people all the time. And it's not something to approach lightly, for sure. Every time people tell me I'm so brave, I cringe a little bit on the inside because, okay, yeah, I'm brave, but you all even know, like the moments where I'm literally like whispering to myself, you're fine, you're okay. And it's just something you have to do to kind of keep going.
You had mentioned that you didn't.
Am I rambling? I feel like
No. Yeah, this is awesome. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people. This is. I mean, at least I think it's educational.
Yeah.
And at best it's. I mean, it's a real story that I think that can benefit people just by hearing it. But I wanted to touch on something that you said earlier. You said because I found it very, very profound to me. You said you didn't feel all of your feelings about this cancer journey until after you finished chemo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can you touch on that? I mean, you just finished chemo. Is it? I mean, do you get the news? Did you get the news shortly after? Did it take a long time to kind of for them to assess? Is it a bunch of CT scans you had to do? The news that what you were doing was working.
So okay.
Did that even not come yet?
It came. What would happen? So when you're doing chemo, the process at St. James is you get there, first come, first serve, right? So people are showing up there at like 5 in the morning, 5:30, just to get a number. And the earlier number you get is the earlier you get through. You get a number, and you wait for the clinic doors to open at like 8 a.m. They call your number. You go, you drop your card in, and then you go and you do just like vitals with the nurses, right? They check your blood pressure, your I think your weight at the time as well, and you have to do blood work. Every single appointment, you have to do blood work. So you go, because they're checking like CBC levels, they're checking your platelets, all that, your white blood count. Because if your white blood count is below a certain number, you cannot get chemo because you won't recover. Right? So if I think the level was, the lowest you could go was 8. So if you had anything above 8, it was great, and they would give you the go ahead. But there was one time where my white blood count was like a 7 or something like that. I'm probably saying this wrong. The lowest probably was 12, and I had like a 9 or something. But because I'm anemic, right? So I have an iron deficiency. And they were like, all right, well, you cannot get chemo today, but also you have to get a blood transfusion. So I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. So then I had to go and find blood and come back another day so that set me back by a few weeks. And then, so once your blood work comes back and everything's fine, then you sit down and you wait. And everything is like a hour and a half wait in between. So you get in, you drop your card, you wait for like an hour, then the nurses call you. They check everything. All right, go and do blood work. You do your blood work, you sit down, you wait for an hour. Then the nurses call you back. All right, time to see the doctor. The doctor sees you, your blood work is fine. They say, okay, great, your blood work is fine. We're going to put the IV access in. And then they put this needle in your arm. Okay, have a seat, and then we'll let you know when you could go upstairs. You sit down there for like an hour. Then you go upstairs. And you sit upstairs. Upstairs moves a little faster. The first 4 sessions I did, that infusion only lasted like 30 minutes. And then you have like 5 minutes before of prep where they do, gosh, why am I forgetting this? Like steroids and allergy meds and all that. And then you sit there on the chair for 30 minutes and they say, okay, you're done, and you go home. The next 4, that session was like 4 hours.
That was the second 4.
Yeah, the second 4.
Right.
So you get a nicer chair, a softer chair, because then you could kind of sleep and, and chill out or whatever. But you feel it going through your veins, and, you could walk with a book, you could walk with music, whatever, but it's a process. I am sweating.
Yeah. Was it? Well, you don't look it, but what I wanted to ask, was it the harsh side effects from the chemo, especially the second half of the chemo? Was it the harsh side effects that when it was done, you were able to kind of then think about the emotions?
Everything. It was everything, because from the moment I started engaging with even Cancer Society, I felt like, and especially when I got my diagnosis, when I received my diagnosis, I felt like I was watching myself experience this journey. I was very out of body kind of vibe. I was dissociating a kind of way and just kind of going through it, because I'm like, all right, you have to go through treatment, you have to go through surgery, you have to do all the things. And I wasn't present, I guess. So when chemo ended, because everything was just, all right, you have to do this, and then you have to do this, and then it was always one thing after the other. And then chemo ended, and I had to wait. Well, they said I would have to wait 6 months before radiation. Ideally, you're supposed to start radiation within 6 months after chemo, right? But it's public health care, and sometimes the machine not working, and all kind of thing. And but once chemo ended, and I did not have that next thing to look forward to, that next 3 weeks appointment or that next thing, whatever, it was a wrap. And I had to literally, it felt like I was coming back to my body and finally feeling everything. Now, and it's interesting that I had that reaction, because after surgery, I wanted to see my scars. I was looking at myself constantly because I wanted to feel something. I wanted to have that emotional reaction, and it wasn't really coming. Like the big emotional reaction wasn't really coming. I had small moments because some of the medication I was on, like the steroids or whatever, it caused me to gain weight. And then some of my clothes wasn't fitting. So I was trying to zip up a dress one day, and the zip just wasn't going, and I lost my shit. Pelt the dress in a corner. I'm like, okay, I could handle, a double mastectomy, but my shit not fitting, I'm losing it. So that was wild, and like little things would throw me off. So that was funny to see these little moments kind of, my cord is tangled, and I'm like, what the fuck, I'm losing my mind. But I have these 2 scars on my chest and I'm fine. I'm like, yeah, scars are cool, whatever, like coping, you know? And, but once that routine ended, even before radiation, the whole treatment routine paused significantly, and it forced me to kind of reconcile all of the things that I'd been avoiding, essentially, all the feelings I'd been avoiding, because I'm showing up in the world as this brave, courageous person, and chemo ended, and I had to ask myself, okay, how much of this was a performance? How much of this, was a real insight into what this took from you? How much of this is grief that you're now recognizing? And how much of this is gonna take more from you? And are you prepared for that? So it was a whole thing, but a lot of thinking and overthinking and rethinking and all the things. But I had nothing else to do.
But think and reflect.
Yeah. So
I mean,
my brain did it.
This part, I guess, is kind of now the post stuff. Cam, could you bring another tissue
Yeah, thanks.
for Mel, please? Thanks. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. We're running out of tissues, please.
No, you're good.
I'm not crying, I promise.
Yes,
I think
yes,
it's allergies. I'm not a bake.
And no, that's more than fine. And
Thank you, darling.
kind of now the post conversation of cancer. Can you kind of share when you got the results or the news that everything was kind of pretty much? I know that a cancer person's journey, you're always going to be checking and double checking and scanning and blood
paranoia.
But can you tell me about when you found out that it was, for the most part, behind you? Even though it may never actually be behind, because it's always going to be part of life. But
that's one thing that I'm always so cautious about. Not cautious about talking about, but cautious about how I communicate that, because of that same paranoia.
Yeah.
For St. James and for the oncology clinic, I'm meant to do a review appointment like every 3 months, right? So at that review appointment, I think the first review appointment is where they went through the pathology report and the results from chemo, and they said, all right, cool, you clear margins, and chemo has shown whatever. And then they do blood work like every 3 months. I would be sent to do blood work to make sure that the CA, whatever, the
125.
that.
Yeah.
Look at you. So that is at a certain level, so it's not, there's no recurrence. It takes a minute, technically, to be considered NED and no evidence of disease.
Right.
And I think they told me, but it really, I don't think I received it, even up to now, because I'm just so paranoid. There's this thing called scanxiety, so every scan, every MRI, everything, because when radiation had to begin, I had to do like an echocardiogram, and I had to do an MRI, and I had to do like all these things. I think I was telling you about that, about the MRI, and I'm lying there, I'm like, oh God, they're gonna find something else,
Yeah.
and everything was fine, but I had to kind of just hold my breath every time and until I got the results. And so they said, hey, yeah, clear margins, and I shared something about it. I didn't even hype up the clear margins part. People in the comments were like, hey, they got it all. Hey, clear margins.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, I need to remember, there has been some joy through this. But to really dig it out and hold on to it has been a challenge.
Yeah, because of the ongoing nature of it.
Yeah.
It's hard to say a journey's done when you're still walking the path.
Yeah.
Right.
I think to be considered to be in remission, you have to have an NED status for consecutive 2 or 3 years. You have to be clear of everything before they could say you're in remission.
Right. Because
I mean,
they've given the disease time to come back if it is going to come
exactly.
back. Right.
Yeah.
And you
And
are,
it could still come back, eh?
of course.
Like people have secondary breast cancer, and so it could come back at any point. But now the intention is to really manage your life in a way where you could prevent it as far as possible.
Right.
And then I'm on medication. So once chemo ended, they put me on a drug called tamoxifen, which is it's like an estrogen. And this is where they had me messed up, because one doctor said, oh, it's an estrogen inhibitor because my type of cancer was driven by estrogen. So I needed a drug that would prevent the production of estrogen, which of course, and with chemo, threw me into menopause, essentially. So I'm post-menopausal, but it's medical menopause.
Right.
I'm supposed to be on tamoxifen for 5 years. I think I have 2 more years left. And now I'm wondering, like, okay, so once I'm done with tamoxifen, what's going to happen to my body? Because I think my body is going to go back into like regular behavior.
Hormonally.
But then I'll have menopause all over again.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like,
wow.
okay, I get to do this twice. This is fun. It's not fun.
That's a very interesting way of, it's a very, very interesting perspective, actually, kind of thinking about it, going through kind of like a chemically induced menopause.
Yeah, it sucks.
And then presumably the later stage life menopause that women experience. I mean, so it's, I understand how it could be not easy to say, all right, I'm done, I'm out of the clear.
Yeah.
Because it's just always part of your life. I mean, going to get a scan or a blood test every 3 months, it's going to be quite the reminder, I just a slight funny anecdotal story. I went to a doctor friend and I said, look, I just want to kind of be, precautionary and preventative if necessary. Oh, give me some things a blood test to check.
Yeah.
And he gave me a bunch of things, blood tests, not like more than just CBC and that kind of thing. Liver profile, kidney profile, those sorts of things. And I went and looked up tumor markers on Google.
Oh God!
Right,
Slippery slope, my friend.
I saw a bunch of them. So I wrote a bunch of them down. I obviously read something wrong, so I walk into the clinic, the lab, and I'm like, I can't take a blood test. Just show what you are. I was like CBC, kidney, liver, and I said CA125, and the woman looked up to me. She's like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah." What do you mean? Yeah, I saw it on Google. I want to get it.
Yeah.
They tested me for CA1, which is carcinoantigen specific to breast cancer, which I didn't know. I found out after, but I was testing for breast cancer.
Which you should be.
But technically, yes.
Men can get breast cancer, and we don't talk about that enough.
Yeah.
Like men can actually be diagnosed with breast cancer because you have breast tissue.
Yeah.
And men should be checking themselves.
Yeah.
But so much of the focus has been on women and breasts, and which I get it, but we're losing men in this as well.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't happen as often, but they happen.
Yeah, well, I know like for the male specific things is like prostate cancer and checking your PSA levels and so like I do all of these things. I check my blood once, twice a year. Make sure that everything is good to go.
Very proactive. It's
And
good.
it's and I'm not ashamed to say I've definitely jumped in an MRI machine. Again, precautionary. Just say, hey, luckily they were a client, so I got to do the scan. I got the scan for free. But I jumped in the MRI machine and said, look, just do a scan. And they're like, what are we checking for? I was like, whatever you see, just scan me and thing. I spent 2.5 hours in an MRI machine doing an abdominal MRI. Stomach, pancreas, liver, kidneys. 2.5 hours. I don't think I ever want to do that. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. That's not a fun experience.
That sound
it's
alone,
constant.
oh my God.
It's constant. And I didn't move.
Yeah. You can't.
for 2.5 hours.
And you're very fidgety. So
Yeah, and I didn't move, and I was lying down flat, and the lower half of my body, my part of my body that was touching the table, went numb.
Whoa.
Pins and needles.
Sheesh.
I ended up getting numbness in my shin,
Right.
because I compressed the nerve in my
God.
on my pelvis, which was, again, things that you don't really expect, but it's part of it. I mean, I was doing it in a precautionary manner, so it wasn't anything scary on top of that.
Yeah.
And luckily everything was all clear with the scans. But yeah, it's part of the journey. I mean, whether you're healthy or you're going through something,
But it's early
these things.
detection, right? Like
That's the best way to battle this thing.
by being so proactive, because early detection is what I continue to say saved my life. If
Right.
I was chilling, when I was diagnosed with stage 1, right? Invasive ductal carcinoma. By the time, because I wanted to enjoy Christmas, by the time I got to St. James,
In February.
the tumor grew to stage 2.
Wow.
Now, it sounds dramatic, but the difference between stage 1 and stage 2 could be millimeters.
Right.
You know, so I think it grew by a few millimeters, which then put it in that category. But if I had doubts and wanted to,
Wait.
cope and wait and all that, I could have easily gotten to stage 3 like in 2 more months.
Wow.
Because it was that aggressive. I had a conversation with somebody, and I hate this story, but it's so important to tell. I had this lady reached out to me, and she wanted to talk. I'm like, okay. So she called me. We were on the phone and we're talking, and she's telling me that she's been diagnosed with breast cancer, but she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer 5 years prior to our conversation. I'm like, okay, how can I help you? Like, what was the aim? And she's telling me that her breast had gotten to the point now where it's oozing. She had to put a rag in between her bra and her clothes so it doesn't seep through her clothing. That's how bad her breast got. Like, it started to deteriorate. When she was diagnosed 5 years prior, she did not want to have surgery. She did not want to cut her breasts off, because how you gonna cut off your breasts? There's a woman, and you know? And she opted to smoke weed, and I smoke weed. Weed is great, whatever, cool. But also do the other things. But she didn't want to do the surgery. She was afraid. She was afraid not just of having surgery, but how she would be seen after, how she would be received after, which I understand. But 5 years later, now, it's stage 4. It's deteriorating. And now I say, so what do you need to hear from me? I said, do you just want to vent? Do you just want to talk, or you want advice? She was like, I want a little bit of both. Like, I want to just talk about what. And cool. So she got it all out. I'm like, you ready for the advice now? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, cut it off, my girl. Like, go hard in the paint for treatment. Do what you need to do to live. Like, you have kids. You have, like, all these things to consider. I have no kids, I could have rocked back and just be selfish and say, nah, whatever. I like life, right? So I made that choice very early on at stage 1. She was stage 4. So after the conversation, she's saying, thanks so much. I feel more confident about doing the surgery, and I'm going to go into the doctors and, do what I need to do. Great. That's what we want, right? She called me back. If we had that first conversation at the beginning of April, she called me back like 3 weeks later, and I missed the call. And she sent a message on WhatsApp, and she said, hey, Mel, just checking in to let you know I went to the doctor and we're starting treatment and da-da-da, and I wanted to update you and let you know what's going on. And I made a note to call her back. But of course, chemo brain is a thing, and I didn't write it down, so I forgot to call her back. What's after April? May? Second week in May, I got a message from her number again, and it was her daughter announcing funeral arrangements. And I got so angry because I'm like, what are we doing? We talk about breast cancer awareness month and whatever, but we're losing people still because they are not prepared to make that difficult choice, because they are unclear about the benefits of chemo and radiation. Now, don't get me wrong, chemo sucks. Radiation is tough, but it works for a reason, and we're in 2025. The science has advanced, like the chemo my mother was doing is not the chemo I'm doing, and the side effects are so vastly different. And she did not know that. She didn't trust it. So she decided to just kind of rub soursop leaf on your, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so wild to me that we have to lose people because they are not fully aware or fully educated.
And the stigma of how they may be received after,
And the stigma.
as a woman going through something
Yeah.
like a mastectomy or double mastectomy.
And I mean, I don't wanna make light of it at all. I have, and maybe it was a kind of blind confidence or something, but I went into this with that level of confidence to say, this is how I'm gonna show up. And I have prostheses. I have a thing I could put on and look like I have breasts or whatever based on the outfit I wanna wear. But most times I'm walking around flat. I also am exploring reconstruction because I like breasts. So I'm going to have reconstructive surgery. That's on me. Not everybody will go that route, or some people would want to do it immediately after. Everybody have their own thing. But I remember I went to the breast clinic after surgery, and, they had to do like whatever drainage checks and all the things. And I walked in flat and had a shirt on, whatever, and this older lady sat next to me. She's looking at me and she's like, and you can see like she was a real hot girl and thinking she was younger, right? And she's like, I like your outfit. I like how you're just walking around with no breasts and thing, like you're real embracing it. I'm like, yeah, girl, because what you gonna do? She said, girl, I couldn't come out my house for the first month after surgery because I didn't want my neighbors to see me.
Wow.
She stuffed socks in her bra because she didn't want to, walk around flat. She didn't want anybody looking at her. And I think back to a story I heard about my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, who had breast cancer, did a mastectomy on one side, and before she could get a prosthesis or whatever, if she had to go outside, she would have like a hand towel over her shoulder to dab whatever sweat, but she's also hiding,
Right.
The surgical side. I'm like, how do we, and it's not easy, how do we convince women that you are still a woman? There's still this level of femininity to you with, how do we have that conversation? And I'm still trying to figure that out because I have moments constantly where I'm wrecked by this idea of desirability and womanhood and femininity and all the things I thought I would be and do and look like as a woman at this age. Like, I'm 41 now. And do I feel sexy today, or do I feel like somebody's son? What's going on? And that has been, easily the most challenging part of this entire experience. Just reminding myself that I'm desirable and worthy and, all the things that we...
And the femininity doesn't stop there. I don't mean to
No,
cut
it
you, but
doesn't. It
femininity doesn't end with that. Yeah.
It doesn't end with that, but there are other elements to this experience, right? Like I told you, this is a very layered experience. So we're physically, you could see, all right, I had a double mastectomy, I'm walking around flat, I like to think I'm fairly stylish, so I could make it work, right? Cool. But then we've explored the mental side of all of this and trying to really wrap my mind around this new version of me and what that looks like when it comes to dating or getting dressed or, all the things. But then internally, there's the aspect of fertility. And now, because of chemo and tamoxifen and all the drugs that I'm on, or all the drugs that have passed through my system, I'm now infertile. And if I wanted to have a child, I would have needed to freeze eggs years ago and possibly get a surrogate or something, which is not $20. So, so it's like all these things, and I'm like, okay, cool. Does that make me less of a woman? Am I less desirable because I can't have children now? Like, how are we? Are we okay? Are we good? And this is me to me, like constantly having this conversation, and
it's almost
not
like
easy.
It's almost like you're having a conversation. You're having a conversation with yourself, but it's a conversation with society.
Yeah.
And it's nice to say that we're confident and we can go through life strong and whatnot. But we're social creatures and we interact and but I do think just conversations with people like yourself, survivors and people who have gone through that journey, I think that it does kind of warm people up to the whole concept of cancer and self-checking, and especially women. And I did a campaign 15 years ago in New York. I was just an actor in a commercial campaign, comedy, but geared around breast cancer detection. And the whole campaign was Feel Your Boobies.
Yeah.
The kind of comedy aspect. Because this was 15 years ago. And now you're telling me just a couple years ago, you had conversations with a woman who's going through, that same psychological thing of what are people going to think? And I guess multiple conversations with people about what are people going to think? What's society going to think? And it kind of it did strike me a little bit, and it hurt me a little bit when the woman said, she stayed inside because she didn't want her neighbors to see. It's like, if we can't count on our neighbors,
there's so much shame
and it may not
illness.
be, and it be that's the sad part, which I think is really unnecessary. But I kind of understand it in a way, I guess in a very small way. But the neighbors may be very receptive and open and accommodating and helpful. But
the neighbors might also like bacchanal and want to talk your business,
well,
and that's the whole thing.
Yes.
Because I posted the first image I posted of my scars after surgery. I know my older brother, he had an issue with me posting so much.
Wow.
He didn't understand it. And we had a conversation, and he's like, I just find, you should keep it to yourself or whatever. Like, some things should be private or whatever. And I told him, well, I have this platform. I'm not trying to just get attention and whatever. Like, I feel like I have a responsibility to share what's going on with me in service to other people, and if I could help somebody, because I would get, a ton of likes and shares and whatever, but I'm not doing this for clout. You think I get breast cancer for clout? Like, that's wild. But within the hundreds of comments, the ones that stand out to me is, thanks for this reminder, I'm making an appointment right now.
Yeah.
That's all I need. That's enough, And when I broke it down like that, he was like, all right, cool, I understand it now. And somebody came up to him and said, hey, I saw your sister's post, and I felt something, and I'm gonna da-da-da. So he had people, as a result of my posting, come and say, tell her thanks or whatever.
Thank you.
So then he got it. He's like, oh, okay, this is kind of bigger than
a post
this.
on Facebook or post on whatever.
It's not just that. It's also bigger than social media and bigger than clout and whatever, and bigger than our family and our family history and this idea of privacy as protection. It's not that. Like, there's the level of shame we have in the Caribbean particularly, and all over the world too, but especially in the Caribbean, about illness. It's something to be studied, for sure.
Yeah.
I wish I could articulate it better, but it's just crazy to me.
I remember when, I mean, we know people locally, but I remember when Chadwick Boseman passed away from colorectal cancer, I believe,
Yeah.
or colon cancer, one of the two. And he was so young when he got diagnosed, I think 37 or 38.
Yeah.
And he passed away at like 41 or 42. And that scared me into, because we are approximately the same age, and so I said, you know what, I'm gonna go and do a colonoscopy. I'm just gonna go and do one. And I was young. I called my doctor. I said I want to do a colonoscopy, and they said, what for? They said, you'd ought to do that till 45. I was like, no, I want to do it now.
Yeah.
I said, and my reasoning behind it, after talking to many doctors, some of them agreed, some of them didn't necessarily want to kind of give in, but what I said was, and this may go for other things as well, not just colon cancer and colorectal cancer, but the age of 45 to go and get your stuff, that was created and kind of formulated decades ago. The things that we are now eating,
Correct.
all of the ultra processed stuff and all of the high sugar, this and that, and the Caribbean diet is not exactly the best diet. I mean, we eat fried dough constantly.
Yeah.
I love doubles.
Yes.
And we eat fried with sweet sauce only. And we eat fried dough constantly. Sugar is such a massive part of our diet.
But the spices in the channel kind of helps balance it.
Yeah. And things like stew.
Yeah.
It's it's a lot of sugar. It's a lot of burning. You melt your sugar and burn your sugar to make your stew. And I think that, and I've said this to all my friends. I let them know all that. I said, go and check yourself.
Yes.
Go and do a colonoscopy. I send lists to all my guy friends and my family, my sisters and all that. I said, go and do these things.
Yeah.
Go and check CA99, which is the carcinoantigen for pancreatic cancer. 125 CEA is for the soft tissue cancers like colon cancer and lung cancer and those sorts of things. It's like go and do it.
And nobody is even, as a civilian, let's say, nobody is approaching their health like that.
No, but I'm paranoid.
Rare.
Yes, and I guess in a way I am, but that's why I talk about it so much.
But the dismissive kind of attitude, because do you remember that story when Angelina Jolie discovered she had the BRCA gene?
Yeah.
And she did a double mastectomy preemptively, right? So she's a pre-viver or whatever, that's the term they call it. That year, when that story came out, I went to my father and I said, I think I want to have a double mastectomy. Like, I think I have the BRCA gene as well because of just how the family history. I want to do the test and I want to do a double mastectomy. And he was so dismissive. He was like, go back to sleep now. Like, calm down. You're fine.
You don't have a photo
relax.
shoot to do?
Yeah, like, go do something with yourself. And he just kind of played it off. And I know that's fair as well. But he did not take me on. And I was like, all right, cool. Maybe I should relax. And here we are, and maybe it would have happened anyway, whatever, but if somebody is saying something to you and they're saying, hey, I'm concerned about this thing and I want to check it or I want to whatever, don't be so dismissive. Maybe say, all right, cool, I'll go with you, be supportive.
Yeah.
There was, I haven't told this story, which is interesting. I thought I had dengue last August.
Right.
It was not dengue. It was diabetic ketoacidosis.
Wow.
Just far cry.
I kind of actually know a little bit about what that is, so that's interesting. But tell us.
So I moved out of Chaguanas. I got my new place in Dago, and I'm great. I had this new job. Everything was perfect, and so I'm still unpacking and all that, right? I launched this Well Yes show. We did the pilot with Anya and all that good stuff. I feel fine. Mentally, I'm not stressed, all that. But I'm exhausted, right? And I'm feeling exhausted constantly. I'm like, why am I so tired or whatever? And I remember we had a presentation at work. It could have been like a Thursday, I think the 14th of August or something. And I have to present. I'm the lead. But that morning, the entire week before, I'm exhausted. I'm just feeling so tired. That morning, I projectile vomit all over my bathroom. I'm like, what the hell? Because when you vomit, you know something wrong. But I don't really vomit like that. Vomit all over. I'm like, all right, clean up, da-da-da, I go to work. I get to work and I'm knackered. Like, head on the desk, kind of just car hold up. So everybody's like, dude, maybe you should go home. Like, you really? I'm like, nah, I have this presentation. We're like, yeah, you need to leave because you're not looking good. I'm like, okay, cool. Somebody drives me home and somebody else follows in my car. And I'm communicating with my sister because I live alone, so I built these fail-safes in for paranoid people who live alone. You know, so we talk every morning, we talk during the day, and we talk last thing at night. And I'm telling her, like, yeah, I feel so sick, whatever. I told my cousin I also, I was feeling whatever, and she said, oh, that sounds like dengue. I had dengue 2 weeks ago. That sounds like me and whatever. So I'm convinced I have dengue. Friday, I didn't go to work. My sister comes to my house. She takes me to the health center because her concern is you're a cancer survivor. So dengue, we need to get you sorted like soon, right? So we go to Diego Martin Health Facility. They're not taking us on. They say, go to St. James. If she's a cancer survivor, just go there. They'll deal with her. On the way to St. James, at this point, I'm fine. Well, I feel fine-ish. I'm messaging like a doctor friend. I'm like, hey, I think I have dengue. Like, what should I take? Whatever. She gives me a list of things to take. Electrolytes, plenty coconut water, Gatorade, take some Panadol or paracetamol or something.
Either one of those.
Yeah. And
it's no Advil, no ibuprofen.
Correct.
Right.
And take some, what is that? Gravol,
Right.
right? For the nausea. So I'm like, cool. So I tell my sister, let's just go to Super Farm and get these things, and I just need to rest. It's fine. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, let's just do that. We go to Super Farm, we get the things, we come back to my place. She sets me up. Cool. That's the Friday. Saturday morning, she calls me to check on me. A friend had brought some fruits and stuff over or whatever. The last thing I remember from that Saturday was I came downstairs, I cut up some pawpaw, and I took it back upstairs to my room. And I'm in bed. I'll lean over, I'll eat a piece of pawpaw, and I'll rock back. In and out of sleep, right? She calls me Saturday morning, and she said, hey, how you feeling? And that's our routine for the past few days. Hey, how you feeling? My response was always, I'm good, I'm just a little tired. I'm good, I'm just a little tired. Saturday morning, hey, how you feeling? I'm like, I'm good, I'm just a little tired. Did you eat anything? I said, no, the Gravol, you're supposed to take Gravol 30 minutes before you eat or after you eat or something. I said, yeah, I had some Gravol, and 30 minutes later, I had some Gravol. And she's like, what? I said, oh gosh, I'm talking shippiness. I had some Gravol, and 30 minutes later, I had some Gravol. No, she calls me Josanne, right? She's like, Josanne, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh gosh, sorry, whatever. I had some Gravol, and 30 minutes later, I had some pawpaw with Daddy. And she was like, with Daddy? Daddy's there? I said, not Daddy Alpha. That Alpha is my father. I said, Daddy Atom, my mother's father who died when I was 16. She's like, I come in.
Oh, Lord.
She races up the road. And at that point, she didn't have a key to my place yet. She just knew the code to the gate. So she is banging on the door. She's calling my phone, all that. And I remember somehow opening the door for her, but that's fuzzy. So everything I'm saying now is from her point of view. She said, I'm calling your phone and I'm hearing the phone ringing, but you're not answering. So I'm panicking outside. She said, eventually she hears me coming down the stairs, and I open the door, and I'm like, all right, now I'm coming or whatever. I open the door for her. I go back upstairs, and I'm back in bed. She took a picture of me in the bed. I looked deceased. Face is gaunt, drawn. It was a mess. She's trying to get me dressed to take me to a health facility. We go back to Digo. I don't remember any of this. We go back to Digo. They're very laissez-faire over there. Nobody's taking us on. She's frustrated. She takes me to St. James. We're sitting there for like an hour and a half. Nobody's taking us on. Nobody's moving urgently. And she said, I'm looking at you, and you're in and out of, like, I'm loopsy, right? And she said, nobody's taking us on. She puts me in the car, and she said, she called a cousin of ours who works at San Fernando General Hospital as a nurse. And she's telling her, she doesn't look good. I don't know what to do. I feel like I want to bring her south. And the cousin said, yeah, bring her. So we drive down. I remember being like asleep. I wake up, I see highway. Sleep, I wake up, I see a little bit more highway. I know we're heading south, but okay, fall asleep again. My brother was at work that day. She said she did not call my dad because he would panic, and sure. She told her husband and she called my brother. He didn't get the message because he can't have his phone on him until he finished work at 4. We got to Sando at 1 p.m. She said she wheeled me around to accident and emergency or whatever. Somebody took one look at me and said, take her to this room to get this thing checked. They gave her a piece of paper or whatever. They went to check my blood sugar, and it was above the level the machine was capable of reading. It just said HI. So somebody came back and handed her a paper and said, take her back to the resus room immediately. Don't stop anywhere. So she's like, okay, but could you tell me what's going on? And I think it was a nurse or a doctor who said, I'm not supposed to do this, but her blood sugar level is above 700. Take her back immediately. And I remember Quincy Jones was in a coma because his level was at 1,000.
Yeah, diabetic coma, yeah.
So she takes me back to the resus room, the resuscitation room. And she gives the doctor the paper, and she said the doctor's eyes opened so wide, and he turned to everybody. He was like, everybody, this person needs attention right now. They start working on me. She's sitting outside on a bench from that 1 p.m. moment until my brother gets there at 4:45. And then they both are just sitting there until 1 in the morning. Nobody's telling them anything. They can't get any information. So my brother now is saying to me after the fact, he said, we sat there so long that we learned what the 2-buzzer thing meant. He said, you were in that room and they could only have 5 patients in the room at a time. 4 people died while you were in there. And we learned what the 2-buzzer, because that's when somebody passes, you hear bop, bop, and they wheel the body out.
Oh my gosh.
He said, and because we don't know what's going on, nobody's saying anything to us. I'm trying to see under the sheet, like who is under the sheet. And I'm just like, what?
Wow.
And eventually, I have another cousin who's an attendant at Sando General. He came and he was able to go into the room and he got the doctor to come out. And the doctor is saying to them, you know, she had this very high glucose reading, but she also was severely dehydrated. So we're trying to balance the 2 things we give to her. And they said, usually we don't go past 7 bags. We just finished the 6th one. She's been fighting us the whole way because I would lose consciousness or I would fall asleep or whatever. And when I wake up, that's when they would do everything, when I fell asleep. But then I'm waking up and I'm feeling like, what is this thing on me? I'm pulling out the IV, I'm pulling out the tube, I'm fighting them or whatever. So they had to wait for me to calm down before they try again. So they said, we don't usually go past 7 bags. We just finished the 6th. We're about to try the 7th. If it doesn't work, it's not looking good. You might want to call your family. And thinking, oh, like, wow, that must have been so scary for them because I don't remember none of this.
Wow.
Like, there is no white light. There's not, like, I was out. I don't know what happened. And then they came out after a while and they said the 7th bag worked. And I'm like, look at God, you know, because I remember being wheeled from, I guess, that room to the ward, and I could not speak properly. They were asking me, they were doing like these wellness checks or whatever, you know, what's your name? Do you know where you are? I'm like, I couldn't say my name. And that was just the Monday. By that point, I thought I'd been there for 7 days already. I kept crying. I was like, I want to go home because my mother died at Sando General. So I don't want to be at Sando General. And my brother understands, but he's like, you can't leave yet. They need to make sure you're okay. Eventually, 7 days later, I'm released with a cocktail of insulin to go home, and I'm shooting up all the time, and I have to eat at a certain time and all that. So I'm like, okay, great. So now I'm diabetic. What the fuck? Like, can I catch a break, And my brother asked me a question. He said, considering your cancer journey and now this, do you ever feel like, why me? I'm like, no, I don't feel like why me, because why me suggests why not somebody else? I do feel like, seriously, like, bro, a chance, please,
Yeah.
And then I found out after, tamoxifen contributes to a decrease in insulin production. It causes your
Wow.
pancreas to basically stop working, and you could get diabetes. So thank you, tamoxifen,
Wow.
for your excellent job.
Wow.
And that's what I'm dealing with now. But I don't talk about it because I feel like how much things you really have I'm going to talk about, and I feel like now it entering pull me one levels of storytelling.
I hear you, but
Yeah.
I think that this has incredible value. I think it does. I think that the more people that hear about journeys, I mean, we just label it as journeys, because there's different types of this disease that can affect different parts of the body. But
Yeah.
I think the more that people hear these stories, I do think that it becomes, I guess, sensitized and desensitized at the same time. Sensitized in that people will go and check
Yeah.
and be a little bit more proactive, and then desensitizes in that it tells people, it's like, look, this is something you have to go through, that you don't,
It's part of it.
it's
Yeah.
it's studying neighbors and stuff, even though you have Mako neighbors. I get it, but
People
I-
fast though. People real fast out here.
yeah, it's true, but it's still better, I think, to kind of, no matter what, and I think I could say that no matter what, it's better to embrace. I think that there are more benefits to embracing something rather than rejecting it
Yeah.
and hiding it, because it's kind of become, this is your new normal, if you will,
Essentially.
Yeah. And but I do think that these conversations are invaluable. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
I see and I feel the value in
To
them.
others too. I mean, fingers crossed, I really do hope I'm not just shouting out into the void. And I have seen, the result of it. People come up to me all the time in public, which is less creepy than it used to be now, but, and online they reach out and they say, thanks so much. Or I have a friend who, just got diagnosed and I sent her your account, and, she wouldn't post about her thing publicly, but she watches every single reel and
Right.
reads every single caption. And I'm like, cool, if it helps, great. That's all I need.
I think that's a beautiful thing now.
Yeah, thank you.
I really, really, I knew I was gonna, it's gonna sound weird, but I know you know what I mean. I knew I was gonna enjoy this conversation, and it's really nice to see you.
Yes.
We haven't worked together in years.
I know.
I remember
We
I was
see each other online.
It's true. We were shooting a music video, I believe. Freetown? Was it Freetown? No.
No,
Saga Boy, the
yeah,
fashion
yeah.
shoot
With Ian,
with Ian and a bunch of other people, and then the makeup artist.
my home girl.
Yes, and she was talking. She's like, "Oh, I worked with Mel." I was like, "Mel who?" She's like, "Mel Gabriel." I was like, "Oh, that's my darling." And then she messaged you.
Yeah.
And then you had responded, "That's
Hey,
my
my
darling."
darling.
I was like, "You see?" No, but it was that's
Yeah.
nice, and it's really, really nice to
Oh,
see you, and it's
gosh.
nice to chat.
Yes.
And then I want to have you when I know that you're out doing some new things or transitioning to new
I
things.
I'm doing the most right now.
Well, I look forward to having you on again and to hear.
Yes.
I wanna hear about all of the stuff that's to come.
Anytime.
Thank you so much again.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.